There's a special bond between a man and his child, a kind of connection no one can explain, but everyone can agree on. Many would even say that even the strongest of men, the most like cold and ruthless men, will crumble in the face of their little kids. Nothing changes a man more than the moment he is handed this tiny little bundle of joy. So when you read a story where a person or a man with his own two hands take the life of their children, you have to wonder, how can they justify this act? If the bond between a father and his child is hard to explain, then the act of such cruelty is even harder. This isn't a story about a monster hiding in the shadows. This story is about a father who held his baby's hand one day and tries to end their lives the next. So let's talk about what happened in Katy, Texas. Hi Digestives, welcome to Crimes Digested, a place where we try to digest senseless crimes. If you're new here, welcome. And if this is not your first time seeing my face, I just want to take a quick second to say a quick thank you for taking time out of your day to join me. On Crime Digested, we attempt, big emphasis on attempt, to delve into some of the most perplexing true crimes happening around us every single day, okay? Some are sad, some unbelievable, some even unexpectedly tragic, like today's case. Today's story not only has all those aforementioned elements, as I said, but will have you baffled at the messiness of everything. So join me as we explore a case so unbelievably disturbing, morbid, and just downright bizarre. A story that no amount of effort can make you understand or wrap your mind around why something so heartbreaking could happen. Very quick disclaimer, and then we will get into today's story. I promise everything in this video is alleged and sometimes my own personal opinion that no one asked for, but most of the information is what you can also find online, so please do form your own opinions. And if you have any additional information, or if you notice something is off, wrong, or misleading in any way in this video, please leave them down in the comment section so we can all learn from one another. It's never too late, right? Let's try to be respectful to each other and kind to one another down in the comment, okay? So we can foster a safe space for everyone to share their thoughts, opinion, whatever else. I like to think of the comment section as my room. And who doesn't like a clean room? I certainly do. With that said though, let's get right into the story. In the early morning under the Texas skies was a quiet neighborhood. People were getting ready for work. Birds were chirping, sprinklers abuzz, and then bang, a gunshot, screams, and a chilling silence, one that felt so normal just moments ago, now feels harrowing. June 7, 2025 in Katy, Texas became a setting for a horror no one saw coming. To call it unnerving, that would be an understatement of the century. A man had just killed his wife, followed by their 7-year-old son, and then he turns the gun on himself. Only 2 people survive to tell the story: his teenage daughter and her boyfriend. This is the story of a family shattered in seconds and a survivor who was never supposed to make it out alive. So who exactly is this man? I present to you Juan Martinez. The 42-year-old man was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, the city of all things military. I don't think you will find a more patriotic city in all of America, okay? Prove me wrong. I'm just kidding. I might be wrong. But from my personal experience, San Antonio is full-on military city. Everyone there has contemplated joining the armed forces at one point, and Juan was no exception. In fact, he not only contemplated the idea, he actually took the leap. He goes on to serve some time in the military, and he's now an army vet turned IT contractor. If you ask most people to describe Juan with one word, they will say devoted. That's who he was as a dad, a devoted father and husband who loved his barbecues and classic cars. Actually, obsessed would be more fitting. Juan was a man who neighbors said always waved at the mailman, No one had anything bad to say about him, and if they did, they kept it to themselves. That's how much the good outweighed his bad. His wife, Elena Martinez, was a 43-year-old high school math teacher, a PTA mom who loved Taylor Swift, okay? I'm not even trying to make a joke. She was a hardcore Swiftie, and she had an Etsy store where she sold knitted baby socks. I mean, isn't that just the cutest? Like, the most I can knit or crochet is a scarf. So I'm always amazed by such artistry. Juan and Elena had 2 kids. The oldest daughter, Sofia, and Lucas, their son. The 60-year-old Sofia was quiet and reserved. She low-key sounds like me, always with her nose in a book, with the lo-fi music playing in the background somewhere every time. She was on the honor roll, a very smart young lady, someone who looks like she's having a main character moment almost every day, like all the time. And then there's Lucas, the adorable 7-year-old who was obsessed with what most kids his age were: dinosaurs, almost as much as his dad was obsessed with his classic cars. He wanted to be a T-Rex scientist, whatever that meant. I don't know. But I'm sure he would have been fantastic at it, as long as he didn't grow out of it, of course. Because, trust me, the number of jobs that I wanted to do when I was growing up is embarrassing, okay? Even now, I still think I could be an expert in at least 10 different crafts. And you can't stop me. My anxiety and procrastination might, no, probably it will. But you can't stop me. No stopping me. Anyways, the Martinez family were, by all accounts, the kind of family you'd see on a Christmas card. Pristine, enviable, but there was a huge secret threatening to come out. Well, it did come out. One that one would rather take to his grave. No one knew that he had lost his job for about 2 months now. And more importantly, his wife, Elena, was also in the dark. No one could have guessed that behind his smile was a man crumbling. But before I get ahead of myself, join me on a little time machine real quick, okay? Let's rewind to April 2025. Juan went to work as per usual, but he got called to the side and his heart was already sinking. Nothing good ever happens when your boss calls you off to the side, you know? Either you did something that was going to cost you some reprimands or you're about to get sacked. And his fears were coming to fruition. And no, it's not because he was bad at his job or anything like that. Not at all. The company just needed restructuring, and he happens to be a disposable asset to them. I'm not calling him disposable in any way, okay? But that's how most companies feel about their employees. Just another replaceable cog in a well-oiled machine. And what does he do? He tells his family nothing. He couldn't bring himself to. I mean, how do you go about starting that conversation? Honey, we're going to be a little broke for some time. Babe, I've been fired and I can't seem to find a job. It's a difficult situation, especially for a man who prides himself on like being the rock of his family. So instead, he leaves the house in the mornings, spends hours at local parks or libraries pretending to be working. Then in the evening, he comes back home, and this will go on and on for weeks. I don't know how long he thought this was going to be, or like he was going to be able to hide this, because they were burning through their savings faster than he could keep track of. The thing about money is, if you're not making any at all and you're spending, eventually you'll run out, no matter how much of it you have. They're now maxed out on their credit cards, and Juan is desperately going around selling their stuff. A few tools here, some watches, and a few electronics there. And his wife, well, I mean, she wasn't blind, nor was she stupid. Elena noticed that items were vanishing from around the house, And so she asked him about it. This should have been a moment of vulnerability, right? The door has been open, and this gives him the chance to sit down and tell her, honey, I didn't know how to bring this up, but we're in a difficult financial situation. I've been laid off, and I'm kind of struggling with finding something new. So things are gonna have to be a little tight around here for some time, but I'm working on it. It's not like he's to be blamed for his employer's rash action, but instead he deflects. He tells her that they're just downsizing. I would have lost my mind. Like, what it would be downsizing? Shouldn't we come to that decision as a family unit? Like, I get that people do it all the time, okay? And I'm not even materialistic, or at least I like to think that I'm not. But that is something that would have triggered me so bad. I don't even know why I feel so offended about it, but I feel offended about it. And Elena didn't want to push too much. He didn't seem to have any issues in the past, so I think that her thought process was that he knew what he was doing. In the meanwhile, Mr. Downsizing, Juan, over here, is drinking more. He's sleeping in more than usual during the day. Classic signs of depression. And late night arguments became a weekly ritual in their house. Elena was at her wit's end. And one day she confides in her sister via text. He's not himself anymore, she writes. I don't know if he's cheating or depressed. Either way, I'm scared. But scared as she may have felt, she took a vow for better or worse. And she meant it. So she never leaves. She's thinking maybe he's just going through it. And everyone is allowed to go through it at some point, right? That's human. Now that we're all caught up, let's talk about that fateful day in June. It's Saturday, June 7th. Juan got up very early that morning and he makes pancakes for the family. Sounds yummy, right? After breakfast, he sits down for a game of Uno with Lucas. He gives his baby girl Sofia a hug before she leaves on a movie date with her boyfriend, Jordan. Everything was normal. Nothing out of the ordinary. That is until 1:42 p.m. A Ring camera footage shows Juan carrying a gym bag from his car back into the house. Still, nothing strange about that. But what's inside the bag is anything but ordinary. Because inside that bag was a 9mm Glock he'd purchased a year ago, legally. So maybe not so strange. Many people own guns, especially in Texas. Are you kidding me? Are you even American if you don't have one? Like, the US is ready to control anything and everything, except guns, of course. Point in case TikTok. Like, the amount of time those men spent arguing for a ban of the app is wildly absurd. Anyways, I digress. It is now 2:13 p.m., about 30 minutes since Juan's movements were caught on the camera, and new movements were picked up. Sofia and Jordan. The two came back unexpectedly because of something I didn't think happened anymore. With how glued everyone is to their phones. But Jordan forgot his phone, and so they had U-turned it back to the house to get the phone. But as they walk in through the front door, what they found was a bloodbath. Then a loud and blood-curdling scream, because in front of them was a bloody Juan standing over Elena's body, holding a gun. Sofia, an action girly, because while Jordan stood there like shell-shocked and probably in fear, she grabs his arm and they book it. He fires once at them, but thankfully he misses. They hide behind a neighbor's hedge and call 911. By the time police arrive minutes later, Lucas was dead, Juan was, and Elena was gone. The two traumatized teenagers trembling behind a bush are the only people who saw what happened. The whole town of Katy was stunned, to say the least. This grueling turn of events was absolutely not on their weekend bingo card. And in honor of lives lost that afternoon, a candlelit vigil was held the next night outside Mansfield Elementary where Lucas went to school. Hundreds of people showed up, and one speaker, a fellow vet, says, quote, Juan was a good man, but good men can lose their minds too, end quote. To that, I say yes, they can. Mental illness is not choosy. No one is an exception, and police also confirmed that the Martinez had no prior reports of domestic violence or history of criminal behaviors. However, they do find some telling web searches on Juan's computer. Digital forensics give us the rawest glimpse into Juan's unraveling. The final 2 weeks of Brow's history include, quote, how long does it take to bleed out from chest wound? Father kills a family and lives. What happens? Financial ruin and suicide laws, Texas. What happens to your family if you die by suicide? How to kill someone painlessly. Multiple visits to Reddit threads on Reddit Depression and Reddit Ask Men about failing as a father. The man was spiraling out of control. Elena Martinez's family released a statement which reads, she stayed because she loved him. She didn't know she was in danger. That just sent chills down your spine. It did mine, because even to the last second, I don't think she felt threatened by her husband at all. That's scary. He thought he was helping them, but they had no say in the matter. With the passing of her entire family, Sofia withdrew from school, moved in with her aunt in San Antonio, and as of the time of this video, Sofia is still in counseling, so she hasn't returned to school yet. I don't even know how someone can heal from something like this, but it looks like she's not letting the grief and trauma overtake her life. She shared a picture of her brother with a dinosaur sticker in her last Instagram post with the caption, Forever 7. As the days turned into weeks, the media spotlights faded. But Sofia's life remains frozen. A family friend shared anonymously that Sofia has started painting again, something she used to do all the time with her mom. And one of her pieces is a dinosaur next to a broken sun. It allegedly hangs on the wall in her therapist's office. She hasn't spoken publicly, and maybe she probably never will. That is absolutely her right. But her silence speaks volume about how deep her trauma goes. Jordan, her boyfriend, did give one interview to a local paper. He says, quote, she froze. But when she saw her mom, she ran like hell. I don't know how we're alive, end quote. The teens are now being treated as witnesses, not victims. But emotionally, they are absolutely victims. They survived something that most of us will never, and I hope, ever have to go through. Now, although the couple didn't have any history of violence in the family, it doesn't mean that there weren't any signs at all. There were warning signs. Juan was losing control of his life. He was unemployed. He was feeling emasculated, constantly drinking and isolating himself. He was hiding everything behind the mask of, I'm fine. Something that we all do every day. And no one asked the second question. No one pushed past the I'm okay. Texas has no red flag laws. So even if Elena had known there was nothing legally she could have done to remove the gun from the house. And this man didn't snap. He had a meticulous plan of attack, okay? And that's what makes this so dark and scary. The Katy ISD school, or Katy Independent School District Board, introduced a mental health hotline the week after the killing. Elena's school, where she was teaching, started a scholarship in her name. Sofia's classmates created a grief wall filled with letters and doodles to make sure she felt seen, heard, and supported. But now what? Do we just add this to the long list of never ending tragedies and move on? We always say, check on your strong friends. I mean, who among us hasn't heard that phrase before? But how do we check on the ones who are pretending to be strong? How are you supposed to check on someone who won't allow any room for vulnerability? Instead of looking at this case as just another family tragedy, let's see it for what it is. It's a mirror, one that's held up to the silence that most men are taught to live in, the belief most of them have on expressing themselves, feeling less masculine for addressing things in their lives because they'll look weak. A mirror held up to a society that doesn't ask the how are you really doing question of men. Juan wasn't a monster. He certainly didn't look like one. He looked like the everyday Joe, the average dad you might run into in a Home Depot, like someone that you'd wave back to across the lawn, especially if you're a mailman or something passing through, right? But what he did, his actions, they were certainly monstrous. And the only people who can tell us what truly happened that day, well, they were the ones he didn't get to finish off. And this is what happens when no one checks behind the smile or the lashing out. Juan's history as an army vet was not just a footnote. It was an extensive chapter in his book of life that no one read in time. Because after serving 2 tours in Iraq from 2005 to 2009, he got released from active duty. No Purple Hearts, no dishonorable discharge. Just a man who came home seemingly healthy, physically, at least. But mentally, that's a different story. His military files, quietly obtained and confirmed after the fact, tells a sad story of multiple instances of combat stress and a flagged recommendation for PTSD screening, but that screening never happened. Now fast forward 2025 and Juan's seen as this stable, strong, independent, and one of the good ones. A man others went to when they needed someone to talk to. He was even a coach for a little league. But beneath the smiles and the dad jokes, there was a man fighting his own demons. A man too proud to ask for help. A man lost in the culture of don't talk about it, handle it, be a man. But that culture kills. It killed Elena, it killed Lucas, and it almost killed Sofia and her boyfriend, Jordan. In one heartbreaking unsent drafted email meant for Elena, he wrote, I failed you. I failed them. I can't fix it. I can't watch you leave with the kids. I'm sorry, this is the only way I can stop the spiral. This is the closest thing we'll ever get to a confession. The case reignited fierce debate on red flag laws. Many do not believe that a red flag law could have stopped Juan, right? But others argue that a temporary firearm removal could have made all the difference. And I guess the state leaders heard the outcry because on June 9, just 2 days after the tragedy, State Senator Kara Hawley stood on the Capitol steps and said, quote, this wasn't a mystery man with rifle. This was a father, and Texas gave him legal access to end his life, end quote. Advocates pushed again for red flag laws, mental health interventions, requirements, and better post-military monitoring. Opponents doubled down on freedom, arguing that it was a rare and isolated tragedy, but here's the uncomfortable truth. It wasn't rare, and it most certainly was not isolated. This argument comes up every single time there's any demand for better gun control, and even in the cases of like school shootings. But my question is this: how many isolated tragedies need to happen before it's no longer a rare accident or occurrence? In the last 5 years alone, over 180 murder-suicides in the United States, involved at least one child, and most were committed by men in financial and emotional crisis, men who had no prior violent records. I think by human nature, we're wired to look for tragedy in every corner, only to act surprised when we finally find one. I mean, if you look for something hard enough, you are bound to find something that will confirm certain preconceived biases, right? I don't want to come off as holier than thou or anything like that, if that's how this is going to come off. I mean, let's be honest, this whole video is talking about someone else's tragedy, so but who am I to judge, right? But I bring this up because not even 24 hours after the tragedy that took place in the Martinez house, every social media platform was flooded with conspiracies, theories about cartel connections, claims that Juan was set up, and a few fringe accounts even tried to tie the case to immigration reform. Don't you just love it when someone's name sounds foreign? They're automatically considered a terrorist or a criminal, especially in the United States. Instead of trying to figure out how we got here, everyone is more likely to focus on how much money should be spent on getting rid of a group of people who were most of the time victims of their own circumstances. Never mind the fact that Juan spent a good portion of his life serving this country. He became the man that everyone hates today because of the sacrifices that he made serving as well. But he was immediately deemed and labeled a cartel member just because his name was Martinez. It took local police days to issue official clarifications that there were no drugs involved, no external actors to set him up, there was no conspiracies, just a man and a storm he kept inside for too long finally exploded. Unfortunately though, misinformation spreads faster than the truth, and some people don't even care for the truth if said truth challenges their narratives. Sofia had to watch her father's face become a meme. Her mother, Elena's photos were even misused in like fake GoFundMe scams. Even in death, the victims are still being victimized. There were no winners in this story. There was no brighter side, no courtroom showdowns, no satisfying arrest, no justice was served. Just a reminder that emotional decay and constipation leads to people dying on the inside and no one being aware. And the question of what will it take for policies to reflect the actual patterns that we keep seeing. Juan Martinez didn't come back from war with any obvious physical injuries. And when someone looks fine on the outside, no one questions what is happening on the inside. We always want a clean villain, a criminal with a record, a red flag in big, bold neon letters. But just as there isn't always a perfect victim, sometimes the perfect criminal does not exist either. I'm not excusing any of what Juan did because they were without a doubt or question wrong. But I also know the struggles that come with dealing with hidden wounds, of people either seeing you as damaged or worse, lazy. And we have to do better because this is the story of what happens when pain goes untreated, unnoticed, and unspoken. But with that, this concludes today's story. Again, thank you so much for joining me on this dive into the case of the Martinez family and the tragedy that came into their home and almost wiped out an entire family like a plague. I appreciate you so much. You can't even begin to fathom, okay? Also, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know if you have a case that has been tickling your curiosity. Maybe we can talk about it. But remember to always stay safe, stay smart, stay curious, and check on your loved ones, especially the ones who seem to have it all under control. Don't just stop at, how are you? really try to understand them and see if they're really doing okay, because we all want to be seen and heard. But I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care. Bye.